You're listening to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. I'm your host, Rick Crawford. In this episode, I interview Orvis Vice President of Fly Fishing, Wingshooting, and Orvis Adventures, Steve Hemkens. And we talk about everything from climate change to how Orvis is implementing sustainable business practices to fight climate change, going carbon neutral, and even some of Steve's favorite flies, rivers, and species. Hope you enjoy. This episode of The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies, a sustainable business consultancy that improves the social, environmental, and economic bottom lines of your business. Profit sustainably. Today on The Sustainable Angler, I have VP of Fly Fishing of Orvis, Steve Hemkens, and thanks for carving out some time for me, Steve. And we'll just go ahead and dive in here.
Sounds great. Happy to be with you.
Yeah, man. So, Steve, we met at a couple of, or maybe it was last year or 2 years ago, had the opportunity to meet. And during our conversation, we had or I guess we have something in common in that we both lived in Jackson Hole for a period in our lives. And which kind of got me thinking, I know a little bit about you in that regard, but I don't know your story, how you got out to Jackson, how you got into fly fishing, how you became a part of Orvis. So I thought I'd just kick things off with just getting a little bit more background on you.
Cool. I grew up in just outside of St. Louis, Missouri. Big Catholic family, oldest of 7 kids, 4 boys, 3 girls. My earliest memories are fishing and hunting with my dad, and we played sports and did that, had a lot of fun as kids. And I got exposed to fly fishing when I was in high school through a classmate of mine, and then a faculty member who ultimately took my brother and I and my buddy Nick, who taught me how to tie flies, on a couple Western adventures when we were in high school. So we did a lap out in Colorado, hit the South Platte and Cheeseman Canyon and the Frying Pan, and that was awesome. And then the next year we went out to Wyoming and fished some water that's still relatively under that fewer people are aware of, in the middle of the state, and then went up to the Wind and fished for some Goldens, and then went to Yellowstone and fished in the park. And so that really was a transformational moment for all of us in terms of the West and fly fishing and dry flies and wild fish and the mountains and all of that. So went to college in South Bend, Indiana at Notre Dame. Go Irish. I did find myself sneaking out from time to time in the fall to go steelhead fishing on the St. Joe and some of the tribs around there. And then graduated with a degree in English Lit. Wasn't sure what I was going to be when I grew up, but had worked through college at Feathercraft Fly Fishing, which is a really, really well-known catalog and internet retailer in the sport. So I worked there for 5 years doing all the stuff that you do in a diversified small business. And then in 2005 had met Tom Rosenbauer through a fly fishing charity event for St. Jude's Children's Hospital down on the White River in Arkansas. One thing led to another, fortuitous wedding of a college friend up in Vermont. Poked around a little bit with Tom about opportunities at well, I actually said Orvis or Vermont was a cool place to live. And he said, well, we've got some opportunities at Orvis. Why don't you come work here? And in that moment, I was kind of more enamored with some of the other cooler fly fishing brands in the industry, but I thought that I should hear him out. And fast forward almost 15 years, and I've been incredibly privileged to be able to be a product developer for rods and rails, line leader, and tippet, for the one of the greatest fly fishing brands. We've done a lot of fun stuff in terms of making Orvis more contemporary and relevant, improving our products, outreach to guides, and as part of that journey, just uh, uh, assumed more and more leadership over the business. And so that's kind of my story. My wife and I had the opportunity about 6 years ago. She's an apparel designer, and she had the opportunity to go out and work in for Mountain Khakis. And their
Oh,
office is
cool.
in Wilson, right at the base of Teton Pass. And we rolled the cosmic dice. We had just gotten married, didn't have any kids, and wanted to live out west in a mountain town. And two of my brothers at that time lived in Jackson, and so Orvis through that transition was incredibly flexible with me, and created a way for me to continue to participate with the company, and to lead the business in different ways. And we had our first son, Luke, who's now 4, out in Jackson, and then decided for a number of reasons to be closer to grandparents, and hopefully reduce and simplify things. We moved back to Vermont be 3 years ago in December. So had 3.5 years of awesome experiences in Jackson, chasing elk around, and fishing and being in the mountains. And now we're lucky to call a really neat and special part of the world home again, and up here in Vermont.
Yeah, that's so Wilson. I actually used to live in Wilson. You mentioned that, and recently had an opportunity. I'm sure you I just have to mention this because it's like my favorite maybe breakfast restaurant ever, but Nora's Fish
Huevos
Creek is.
Rancheros at
Uh,
Norris Fish Creek Inn with the
that,
chorizo.
oh man,
Gotta do it.
God, can't get enough of it. We took my daughter Emma Claire there for the first time, and gave her first Nora's blueberry pancake. So that
Yeah,
place
that's
is great.
awesome. That's great.
Um, oh, that's super cool.
That's a
So
great plug for anybody who's going to Jackson to go to Norris Fish Creek Inn, James Beard award winning restaurant. Get the huevos rancheros, the chorizo, or the
right,
blueberry
yeah.
pancakes.
Well, isn't that crazy though about the James Beard Award? I actually did not know that until our most recent visit out there, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!"
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, but then one of the other chapters of I think it really had less to do with living in Jackson and more just with a combination of events, but had met, I think, someone that you also know, Hillary Hutchison, who's a guide and a figure in the fly fishing industry. And we fished together and participated in kind of a think tank type of event in the fly fishing industry. Geez, probably six years ago, about recruitment and conservation and challenges facing the fly fishing industry. And a one of the founding members of Protect Our Winters, Auden Schendler, spoke about just kind of the existential threat, not just to fishing, but to the world posed by climate change. And so the past 5 or 6 years, I've really tried to immerse myself more and use my influence in the industry and within Orvis as a leader in the company to be a voice and an advocate for sustainability and for responsible business practices, and for ways in which the industry can lead and be more thoughtful about the impacts that we have, positive and negative to critters and to ecosystems, and hopefully be a positive part of change going forward. And I think that's kind of what brought us together last year, and what
Yeah.
kind of was the genesis of me chatting with you today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had seen recently, well, a couple things. One is if anyone is looking for a good sustainable business book, Alden Schindler, who's involved with Protect Our Winters, but also I think he's the VP of sustainability at Aspen Snowmass.
Yep.
He wrote a great book, and it was one of the first um, books on sustainability that piqued my interest and got me sort of on this career path. Actually, is Getting Green Done by Alden Schindler. It's an insightful book of someone who has implemented sustainable business practices at a ski resort, and it's a really good read. So that's kind of an aside, but on the note of Protect Our Winters, I saw what is y'all's and like what is y'all's recent involvement? I've seen some stuff on social media. How are y'all getting more involved with PAL?
So, as I said, we actually being in Auden's presence 5 or 6 years ago, and having him talk about climate change and really what's at risk woke me up, and that was really the introduction to me with POW. In It's probably been 3 or 4 years ago. I was invited by POW to go Protect Our Winters, to go to DC and lobby on Capitol Hill, which was the first time I had ever done anything like that. And several Olympians, Carolyn Gleick and a number of other big mountain skiers, and outdoor, or not, or winter sports badasses were gathered, and I felt really lucky to be a part of that. And Hillary was there. She This was in the time of the hoot owl restrictions in Montana, where
Mm,
you couldn't fish after a certain point because of low water, fires, and so to hear professionals, both in Olympians or people that I admired, like Hillary, testify in front of a caucus of Congress people that were interested in climate solutions, was as well as be in the office and in the presence of um, congressmen and senators like um, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, and some others, was really a humbling and energizing experience. And so, one thing that I've done, Orvis has done, in supporting me in that with POW, to go lobby on the Hill. Auden has come to the Orvis Guide Rendezvous, which is something we've been doing about 30 or 35 years, to get guides, lodge owners, operators in the fly fishing and wing shooting outfitting industry together on an annual basis. And we had Auden come and talk about climate change to that audience. So that's another way that we've participated. And then on the corporate PR and collaboration side, we're working, I think, in conversations with POW in different ways about how Orvis can support POW, and vice versa. And I'm going to be getting together with a lot of with Auden and some other folks from POW in 2 weeks, when we're out in Denver together for the fly fishing industry trade show, to understand progress POW has made in terms of recruitment and engagement of different groups. I know they've launched POW Trail, super engaged from an engagement and advocacy and a recruitment perspective. And so I would say those are kind of the major headlines or ways in which Orvis and Power are collaborating.
Cool. And so you obviously talking about climate change and the impact that it has on our fisheries. I think it's probably a good opportunity, if anyone hasn't been educated on that. It's so basically, and the IPCC actually just released a new report, um, about so it with freshwater fisheries, it's there's less snowpack. So streams are getting warmer earlier in the season because it's hotter, which is not good for cold water species, and that is a direct result of climate change. So it's bad for freshwater fisheries. But this new IPCC report that I haven't read the whole thing, but I've just kind of read a summary of it, is talking about the impact that it's having in our oceans, because our oceans are absorbing the large majority of the heat, as well as the greenhouse gases, and it's making our oceans more acidic, making it more difficult for um, shelled animals and crustaceans and things to survive, which has ripple effects throughout ecosystems. It's changing migratory patterns. So, as businesses in the, whether it's fly fishing or winter sports, or, the outdoor industry period, um, it makes sense to address climate change and everyone to do their part, and what they can. Really, I think everyone in the industry should be working towards a common goal of carbon neutrality. Um,
Amen, brother. I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree with you more. Like as an angler, as a dad, as a citizen of the world, when you think about the the impacts and if we don't change the emissions pattern and the temperature continues to rise past some of these tipping points, we can already see what the encroachment is and the impact on native fish species. I live in New England, which is the ancestral home of the brook trout, and it's pretty obvious what's already happened in our lifetimes in terms of the amount of the diminishment of winter snow, and then what that means in terms of water availability within the streams. Less water, more warming, less ability to manage stress or stay safe from predation, the reduction and kind of passage for spawning. So that's really scary in the West. And you spoke to it. You've got less snowpack. You have the reality that the winters aren't as severe. You have bark beetles and different things that are wreaking havoc on the forest. There's a symbiotic relationship, if that's the right word, between forest cover on the mountainsides, uh, allowing for the snow to stay longer through the summer and melt more slowly, which allows for a more steady supply of cold water through summer. So there's kind of a 1-2 punch of not getting cold, not killing off the bugs that are wreaking havoc on the trees, less snow to begin with. So then it's happening, the runoff is happening in these mega events. And then depending on how much spring snow or how much rain or how warm it ends up getting during the summer, you can have rivers and ecosystems that are on the fringes get marginalized. There were tons of whitefish that died in Yellowstone, that they just linked to stress from temperature. So on the freshwater side, I think you can see the patterns and know that the path that we're on without any urgent change is bad. And then, as you said, the threats ocean acidification, coral bleaching, invertebrates, not the hard shelled critters like shrimp and um, mussels and all that not being able to do their thing, seagrass die off, what all that means in terms of the critters and the fish that we love to chase, the ecosystems that they depend on, the economies, both local and through manufacturing and sales and fly shop, and that whole web of the economic benefit that results from sport fishing. I mean, it's staring us in the face for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's one of those things too. I mean, you mentioned, what you're seeing in terms of brook trout, and we're Charleston, where I live, and in the form of sea level rise. The days that downtown Charleston is flooded is increased significantly even over the last 10 years. I read an article in the local paper, Post and Courier. I don't remember what the statistics were on it, but it's basically, it went from, I don't know, like 10 days a year to now it's like over 50 days a year where there are streets in downtown Charleston that are underwater. And that is directly attributed to sea level rise, which is another impact. And so, you mentioned it's staring everyone in the face. And I know that Orvis, in addition to protect our winners, and because I think that's a really important component, and in terms of, we need, in order to have systemic change at the scale that we need, you have to affect policy. And so in order to do that, PAL is a great vehicle to let your elected officials know. But everyone out there listening to this should be calling in to or emailing or what, however they'd like to communicate with their elected officials, and let them know that this is important and that their vote depends on it. Because as you said, you have I know you have a couple of kids. I have and to not act is irresponsible. And so I know that Orvis, and I was wondering if you could elaborate or share a little bit of some of the things that Orvis is doing. Like, I know it's at your headquarters, I think, that you'll have a solar array and things like that. If you wouldn't mind shedding a little light there, and some success stories that y'all have had.
Sure. So I think it's been 5 years we installed solar panels on a roof. It's not offsetting 100% of the electricity consumption of this building, but it offsets a significant amount. And we've got over 200 folks in this office. We have our warehouse, we have our corporate office, we have there's 70 corporate retail stores, and so conversion of the lights to LED to reduce energy consumption has been a major area of focus for us. I just got an email like 2 weeks ago to say, if you're here at the office on the weekend, you have to park in a certain place because we're going to convert all the dawn dusk lights in or dusk to dawn lights in the parking lot to LEDs, which
Oh, cool.
I was happy to see. We've been partnering with Costa Sunglasses on their Kick Plastic initiative, and so if you were to come here as a visitor or vendor of Orvis, you'd see that it's completely plastic free. You've got to use your own reusable container, plates, knives, all that, which is small, but it's also about reinforcing behavior modification and some sense of personal ownership within the employee base at Orvis. Our our sustainability lead, who is within the sourcing and product team. She is part of the Outdoor Industry Association Sustainability Working Group, which is a group of leaders within different outdoor industry businesses that are comparing notes and holding themselves accountable to walk the talk when it comes to chemistry, processing, handling, waste, energy consumption, and supply chain water consumption, which is a big thing, with a goal of trying to walk the talk when it comes to knowing that at the end of the day we make a lot of stuff, we sell a lot of stuff. Like, what's the total life cycle? Are the raw materials coming from virgin materials versus using recycled polyester in our shells and our insulation? Recycling isn't the be all end all, because the original resources were still used and consumed in the manufacturing, and those are lost. But just in terms of some level of circularity, keeping the materials in use for a longer period of time, and improving or diminishing the amount of waste that ends up in a landfill, that's an area that we're focused on. We're starting the process of seeking B Corp
Yep.
certification, which is another set of standards and baseline in terms of business practices and supply chain, product life cycle, energy, et cetera, which is, I think, which is really cool. And I think I need to be transparent and accountable in saying we're still relatively early on in our journey, but
Yep.
I'm also proud of the company ownership, company leadership, that we're talking about this stuff and trying to establish baselines in terms of our baseline greenhouse gas emission, our carbon footprint, so we can set some goals towards carbon neutrality. We're putting solar panels on our building, doing the LED conversions, and then some of the little things. And this may be Vermont, which is a unique place, but we've got bees that folks in this office take care of. We've got a community garden. We compost relatively recently, we compost all the food waste in the within this building. So those are, I think, all different ways in which the company is trying to own our footprint and put different small and bigger, more strategic things in play to reduce our energy consumption and our impact.
Yeah, yeah, and you, which is all fantastic, and I applaud y'all. And one of the things that I think if there's any business owners or really anyone, but one of the things that I tell all of my clients in terms of when it comes to sustainability, there is, you never really achieve sustainability. It's a journey. You have to start somewhere. And the people who want to point fingers and say you're not doing enough, you're not doing this, that doesn't help anyone. Any business should start somewhere, whatever that is. You mentioned baselines, and you're exactly right. So create, do calculate your carbon footprint, have your baseline, and then start to implement things like you're talking about. Of, okay, let's switch to LED. Okay, we've realized some cost savings there. Then we can maybe reinvest that into some other sustainability initiatives that are going to further not only improve our financial performance, but also our environmental performance, which ultimately benefits society. And that is, in terms of a sustainable business model, that's what is called the triple bottom line, right? You have your social, environmental, and economic bottom lines. And Orvis is certainly on the right path. and I love to hear that. So it's a win-win. Another point that I always try and make is that people think that they have to sacrifice quality or that it's going to cost them
money when, in fact, businesses that operate with a sustainable business model are actually improving their environmental performance through a reduction in operational costs, but also they have more loyal customers because of the growing number of conscious consumers, as well as increasing competitive advantage and using sustainability as a way to drive innovation. And
the right thing to do. And so anyway, I thought I'd mention all of that it's not it's not a race. It's a journey, and you make 100 pennies make a dollar. You make these small improvements. If everyone does that, we have a huge impact. So I think that's really great what y'all are doing. So kudos.
One of the things that has been really clear to me in our current climate is, we're a free market capitalist country economy, and we place a lot of pride on that in different ways. And when a business shows up, or representative of a business shows up, whether it's at the local, state, or national level, and talks about sustainability, climate change, existential threats to their business model, their ability to supply jobs and generate value in the economy, politicians pay attention. So it's been eye-opening for me to see how important, how much value is placed on the voices of businesses within the broader economic and political landscape, and why I'm really proud to work at a company like Orvis.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Sustainable Angler podcast. We thought we'd take a minute to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Protect Our Winners. They're working really hard to mobilize the outdoor sports community against climate change. And if you have the means, would definitely recommend donating to their cause. And you can find out more information at protectourwinners.org.
Steve, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because they, in terms of communicating climate change impacts and, bringing that conversation, which is part of what we're trying to do on this podcast, right, is open up that conversation. But ultimately, I think probably the most powerful medium out there is film. And you and I have a mutual friend in Todd Tanner from Conservation Hawks, and he's done, I don't know the ins and outs. I'll let you tell us more about that. But I know Orvis has been involved in some of the films that he's done about climate change and its impact on hunting and fishing. So what are I know that you were actually in one of the films, and I know other folks from Orvis have been too. But could you tell us a little bit more about getting involved with those films?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got exposed to Todd in quite a while ago, probably 6 years ago, when we were living in Jackson, and had the opportunity to participate in the first film that he made, the Conservation Hawks made. And I probably should take a step back real quick and say, one, I'm on the board of Conservation Hawks and have been for a number of years. And two, our mission is really to engage hunters and anglers around the threats that are posed to, the things that we love as a result of climate change, and try and create a voice and a movement of change and of political action to our elected officials through the through the army of the tens of millions of people that love to hunt and fish in this country, and who sadly in a lot of cases are sitting on the sidelines and are either open denial about the things that are happening, or aren't moved to step up and have their voice be heard. And so we've used film as a vehicle for trying to tell stories and talk about threats to climate change in different ecosystems, and even as they relate to different species out there that people like to chase with a rod or with a gun. So the first project was our goal was to be on the fly fishing film tour, and it was a collaboration with Orvis and Patagonia and some other brands. And I was privileged enough to spend some time with Von Chouinard from Patagonia, who's a passionate angler, as you probably know. West Yellowstone and Fly Tire and Fly Shop icon Craig Matthews, Tim Romano's photographer and a writer in the industry, myself, Todd Tanner, and his son Kian. And so we got together and we made a film, and it was on a little stream. It's a tributary of the Madison that had a really cool conservation success story. And Craig really thought it was going to be awesome fishing, and we had all these great anglers, and we were going to make this high impact movie that both had a purpose and a message, but also had some great fishing footage in there. And 6 really well experienced anglers were hard pressed to grind out a couple fish over the course of the day, which just goes to show you that Mother Nature never cooperates. But if you fast forward in terms of Orvis's collaboration and participation, Tom Rosenbauer went and did a film project up in British Columbia around called Chrome that was around steelhead and salmon and the impacts of climate change to migratory fish. The next year, it was more about generations and family. And that film was called Convergence, and again was on the fly fishing film tour, and some folks from Orvis, Simon Perkins and Perk, and a friend Hillary Hutchison and her daughters that I referenced earlier were part of that. And then the most recent film project, which aired on the Sportsman's Channel as an actual episode over the course of this winter, we stepped out of just fly fishing as the focus in our core comfort zone. And there were several different pathways, one around upland bird hunting in the West, one around fly fishing on the Henry's Fork, one around ice fishing in Montana, Wyoming. And then the last one was Craig Matthews again talking about elk hunting and what climate change could mean in terms of big game ecosystems, and a lot of the stuff that we talked about in terms of winters and snowpack and fires and different species and subspecies of grasses and of trees that underpin the ecosystem that elk thrive in are at risk in the same way that Western wild trout populations are at risk as well. So I've been really energized, and it's pretty cool to be able to be a part of a film with a message, with some really cool people and icons of mine like Yvonne and Craig, and then to have helped support through the sponsorship of Orvis and the participation of some of our associates like Tom Rosenbauer and our shareholders like the Perkins family in the creation of these projects over the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I have been a huge fan of all those films, and really to just really inspiring. And I'll I'll say that there's some Mondays that I watch cold waters to get fired up to start the day.
Yeah.
But no, that's super cool, and and I love that that Orvis is a part of that and supports it, and as an Orvis customer and a friend of yours, I appreciate everything y'all are doing.
Awesome.
Well, I thought maybe we would segue into some rapid fire questions here.
I'm ready.
All right. So we've been talking.
I'm a Capricorn. I like cheeseburgers and fishing.
We've been talking climate change. We've been talking some heavy stuff. Hopefully we've shed a positive light on what Orvis is doing, but now it's time for some rapid fire fishing questions. So let's start with if there was one fly that you could use for saltwater, all species, not just flat species, anything. If you only had one fly to use, what would it be?
Enrico Puglisi peanut butter.
A peanut butter fly.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So all species. You heard it from Steve Hemkens. He's going with the peanut. Favorite western trout river?
The Upper Green River in Wyoming.
Yeah, love that area. Yeah, I can't.
Just don't ask me to get any more specific than that.
No. We will not do that. All right, and then freshwater and salt. Favorite species to catch on fly?
Freshwater trout. I'm a kind of little bit of a redneck. I still like to catch my bass on a spinnerbait from my childhood in Missouri, but trout, freshwater, tarpon, and saltwater. I've had a tarpon obsession and an annual pilgrimage pretty much every year for almost 20 years. So I've got a lot of love and curiosity and passion for the big silver guys and little ones too.
Oh, absolutely. They are dinosaurs. They're fascinating fish for sure.
Hey, so I wanted to take another minute to give another quick shout out to our friends over at Conservation Hawks, who are really also helping to motivate hunters and anglers to get more involved with climate change. There's a ton of great information on their site, conservationhawks.org, and you can also find all of the videos that Steve and I mentioned on their YouTube and Vimeo channels. So don't forget to check that out.
That wraps this up. So, Steve, I really do appreciate you carving out some time for me today. I know that you're busy. I'd like to just say also thank you for your leadership at Orvis and taking the stance on climate change. I think it's wonderful, and just really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Rick. It's been great talking to you, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks out in Denver.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
All right. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the Sustainable Angler Podcast. For more episodes, you can find us on Google Play Music, iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. And we also have a Facebook and Instagram account, The Sustainable Angler. So don't forget to follow us there for the latest. Thanks.